Hi, I'm Gary Null. I'd like to welcome you once again to our Classroom on the Air. Today, something that we all need, and we know we don't have it more often than not, but we're absolutely certain if we work harder, we'll get it. What is it? Happiness. So our discussion today, which will be a lecture I'm giving before a live audience, is on something that we all are better off if we have. Happiness, true happiness. But that happiness is not something we can buy. It's not something we can reach out and another person and bring into us. No, happiness has to originate from yourself, and it's there. It's there from the time you're born, before even you're born. What causes some people just to walk around sour in their disposition, sarcastic or rude? They can't relax. They can't be happy. Even if you put them in the right environment, they're detached from the environment. If you go on a trip and you're visiting other cultures, they'll look what's wrong or agitating or irritating about the culture, or the room they stayed in, or the food they ate, instead of appreciating, wow, these people seem happy. It was interesting because as a scientist, as a senior research fellow at the Institute of Applied Biology since 1970, I wasn't a senior research fellow in 70, but I started then. I asked myself, why is it when I travel around the world to different countries, I'm seeing something that I don't see enough in the cities. I certainly have seen it in the suburban area and the countryside. And that was happiness. So I decided to test my theory. My hypothesis was that life is more than just fulfillment through your career, your relationships, by eating the right foods, taking your supplements, de-stressing. There's something missing. Because when I did an anti-aging study, and I was the director of the division of anti-aging at the Institute, I did a lot of research, wrote a lot of papers. I found that Americans uniquely were missing that equation. So I went to the jungles of Brazil. I went to Venezuela. I went to Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, half the island, 3/4 of the island, Haiti, the other quarter of the island, all over the Caribbean, Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, many, many times, and then around the world. And what I found was that a lot of people didn't have any vitamins. A lot of people didn't do any de-stressing exercises. They didn't meditate. They didn't have biofeedback equipment. And sometimes they did a lot of smoking and sometimes drinking, but they were still living longer lives than the average American. With all of our hospitals and all of our healthcare system, all the money we were spending the most in the world, and it's also true today, we're going to spend $4 trillion this year on health, but almost all that's on disease, but nothing on prevention. And so when I came back after visiting all these places, spending time in the country, spending time in the Italian Alps and the French countryside and in the mountains, I found that happiness was as important as anything else in that person's life to determine how long they were going to live. Happy people get less disease because when you're happy, you're more inclined to make the right choices. So if you're not happy, you're going to be frequently either anxious or depressed or moody. How often is it that a moody, angry, depressed, or anxious person is going to say, I'm going to get up today, I'm going to make my bed. It's going to be made perfect. And I'm going to take a look at my closets to make sure that I'm not just not wearing the clothes I have. You know, I'm not a store to sell clothes, so I need what I need, but I don't need extra. Let me give it to people who could use it. Let me clean up my environment. Let me organize it so it works. If you start the day with that attitude, everything else you do will be enhanced by your sense of completeness, and you're happy with yourself. You're not going to go exercise because your doctor warned you got to bring down your high blood pressure and you got to bring down your diabetes. No, you're going to exercise because you're happy to be healthy, and you're honoring that. And think of how more opportunities a person who's happy is going to try because they have trust. They're vulnerable, they're open. Yet a person who's been harmed in some way or betrayed or lied to or used, they close down. When you close down, you constrict. When a person has fear, they constrict. Their neck muscles bulge out. Their breathing is shallow. And sometimes a person can live like that in what I call a functional dysfunctional state. I mean, they're functioning, but they're also doing their work and, going about their business and having a family, whatever it is. But they're doing so from a dysfunctional mindset. So you can feel it. You can sense the tension in someone. They're not happy. Happy people are able to laugh. They're able to be relaxed. And when you're laughing and you're relaxing, your immune system goes up. When you're stressed, depressed, or anxious, your immune system goes down. You're more susceptible to diseases, heart disease, cancer, strokes. But when you're happy, how often will you make a bad choice intentionally? More often than not, you'll make a good choice intentionally. And that all accumulates. Many good choices, suddenly one day you're in good shape. You got abs. You're healthy. If you wanted to run a marathon, you could. And you don't have high blood pressure or diabetes. So that's why it's so important to understand that happiness is not something you get out there. It's something you create in here with a sense of completeness, of purpose in life, honoring the simple things of life. On the hedonic scale, hedonism, at the very beginning, it is finding happiness in the simple things. And that's what I found all over the world. People didn't have all the flat screen TV, sometimes didn't have any TV or radio, but they found happiness in what they did have. They weren't angry about what they didn't have. They weren't envious or jealous. They simply said, I'm happy with what I have. I saw children in Jamaica who were poor, and yet they would play, and they'd play with sticks and do things with what they had, and they were happy. And then I saw people who had everything and were unhappy. They needed more. Only if I reach this goal and work hard and sacrifice all my personal life and sacrifice my relationships and sacrifice my pet being with him, I got to be single-minded. I'm monotheistic. One goal, one mindset, and the rest of the world I pay no attention to. If there's suffering that I can help, forget it. If there's something that I'm concerned about, I won't pay attention. Wow. That's about 17 million professional class, lawyers, doctors, professors, engineers. They lose a sense of the completeness of life by slowing down and saying, what do I have now that I can be happy with? And that is, you have to be happy to feel good with yourself. Otherwise, you have what I call the big empty. You're just going to push for more and more and more and more. But that's not going to make you feel better. It's going to create more anxiety. And you're going to, for everything you think you succeeded at, you're going to lose something in the proportion of what you did not stay responsible for. So then people try to assuage their guilt by buying their kids something instead of giving their time. Kids don't care about what you give them. They care about you. And if you miss those crucial points in child's development, in their transitions, then one day you think, okay, I realize it took 14 years, but finally I feel confident enough that we can just have a standard of living that I can spend time with you. The daughter, the son says, Dad, I don't need that now. We've got other friends that have filled that void. No, sorry but you can't just pick up what you left off as if you're starting where you left off. We're way ahead of that now. We have our own friends and needs, and it would have been good if you'd been there with us. But I bought you I had private tutors. I had nannies. Yeah. But we didn't want that. We wanted you. You see, we've done it all wrong in our parenting today. The greatest generation, my parents' generation, many of your parents, they did it right. The baby boomers could have done it right with the X generation, but more often than not, they just spoiled them because we were too focused on getting to the top, being number one, succeeding, and we did. And look at the mess the world is in today. So let's just focus upon happiness in a different way and see if this lecture can't bring new insights into your mindset. Now to our lecture.
What makes me happy? I find happiness in the little things mostly, I'd say.
What makes me happy is sitting with a hot cup of cocoa in the winter in front of the fire.
I find it in other people's smiles, and I try and find happiness in most situations, regardless of how hard they might be.
Other things that make me happy are being with friends and playing sports. That's really lame, isn't it?
Come Monday when I quit my job, I will be happy.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Null, and I'd like to welcome you to a continuing part of our series on self-empowerment. Today, the topic is how to find happiness in an unhappy world. Now, all of us seek happiness. In fact, that's one of the whole purposes of life, joy and happiness. But if we're all trying to be happy, and most of us are succeeding at various things, we have good educations, we have families and careers, and an awful lot of people are even financially well-to-do, then why aren't we happier? Almost everyone you speak with has problems, all different types. So what I intend to do is to explore some what I believe are the primary causes for our lack of happiness, and then focus upon things that will provide us a solution. Now, mind you, these are merely some suggestions. By no means should you limit yourself to these particular perceptions, but at least they're a jumping off point for yourself.
We haven't been taught how to find true happiness. When you look for things in this world alone to make you happy, you're going to be disappointed. So there's no perfect relationship, there's no perfect car, there's no perfect meal that doesn't have more needed to keep one satisfied.
So my happiness is my responsibility. My well-being is my responsibility. If there's something going on with me that is out of harmony, that isn't working, that I'm displeased about, it's my responsibility to fix that.
We should not allow ourselves to be boxed into our beliefs and then labeled with that. How many times have we found that we are not able to think outside the box because we become the box? You're Republican, you're a Democrat, you're conservative, or you're a Catholic or Jew. You're a person from a particular socioeconomic group or a certain race. Now, not that we cannot do that. The problem is we're all a part of various belief systems, but the belief systems should not determine how we feel about ourselves. What if you're a doctor? What if the treatment, what if the diagnosis has nothing to do with what's really happening in that person's life? Did you really sit down and take the time and energy, ask about the diet? Was it underactive thyroid that could cause mood swings? What about if the person's just having a bad time?
Perhaps their relationships now are going well, or maybe they had money problems, and their life situations were begging them to change the course in their life. The life situations were telling them something was wrong and you need to fix it. But instead of fixing their lives, adjusting, making changes, they simply changed the way they felt with medication. As a result, their lives went on as dismally as before. Nothing was changed, and eventually they found themselves worse off than ever.
Maybe they've had some losses. And isn't it reasonable when we have losses, we're not going to feel good? Loss of a pet, loss of a loved one, loss of a friendship, loss of a relationship, loss of a job, even the loss of how our body once was, the elasticity of our skin, the dynamic muscles that we once had, the strength, the endurance, the stamina, the vitality, the clarity of our vision, our senses, our sensuality, our libido. When those are diminished, ask someone, do they feel good about it? It's a bad moment. And life is made up
of a lot of bad moments, but it doesn't mean that we have to sustain the bad moment. We can experience it, be honest with it, and let it go. You let it go because you understand your life is more important than the bad moment you're in. How you feel about yourself is more important than the crisis you're in. Look at every crisis, look at every bad relationship, look at every bad moment as merely a point that you're going through like a rainstorm. And sometimes it's just pelleting you so hard you don't think you're going to make it. You almost feel immobilized and down. But then you look and you see there's a rainbow on the other side. Whether I see it or feel it in this moment, this storm will end. And every passage in life begins a whole new process of rediscovery, renewal. So don't get stuck with your mind always dealing with how you feel about a problem. And then you're no longer stuck by being in that box. The box does not determine who you are. The box does not limit you. That's what's important. So when I say that happiness is frequently limited by how we box ourselves and how we label ourselves, get rid of the labels. Get rid of the boxes. Become an independent thinker. It is only when you think clearly independent of everyone else that you're able to see something for what it is. If the only time you can visualize something is through someone else's belief system, then what happens if that belief system is wrong? What happens if that visualization is wrong? Well, then everything you're going to be a part about in itself is wrong. So happiness is as much what you get rid of as what you bring in. People think that I have to go find happiness. I'm going to go find happiness. You're not going to find happiness. Nobody goes and finds happiness. Happiness isn't out there. Happiness is not in you, younger you, more stud you, beautiful blonde you, rich you. Or you wouldn't know that by the magazines and the ads, would you? No.
How does the mass culture help you? It's nothing. There's nothing there for you. And so if you're a child, as well as an adult, and you've gone through life responding to whatever the marketeers give you, the advertising campaigns want to sell you, and you've never thought more deeply about life, then when life doesn't go well, and what the marketers and the advertisers promise you doesn't come to pass, and then you're confused and you panic, and then you naturally reach for something like medication. And so in a way, the children and the adults, they are all part of the same culture, and they're gripped with the same problem.
When one is seeking happiness outside of oneself, which, by the way, is the setup of society, the entire commercial world of media and commercial society, the marketplace, is designed to feed us with various pleasurable items with the ticket called happiness. And of course, if anyone goes along that path for any length of time, they will most likely come to a place of realizing the inherent emptiness of that path.
I think that the key to staying happy in an unhappy world is to follow your bliss and your passions. And if you continue to do things that you're passionate about, then you can continue being happy.
My name's Abby, and what makes me happy is acting and my dog and just like little things like sailboats.
So you got to understand what we're really doing. I mean, almost always we're looking for something that we think that when we get it, we're going to feel good about ourselves. That's why we're willing to commit ourselves to this. So we just think more. Happiness has nothing to do with more. It actually has to do with less. So the very first rule on being happy, unclutter your life of everything that complicates it. Our lives are mercilessly complicated. We spend an inordinate amount of time and effort and energy making our lives complicated, and we shouldn't. Now, I want people to realize that you should make a list. Make a list of everything that complicates your life. Everything, or everyone. And then look at it honestly and say to yourself, what am I doing that I could lessen or undo? It's just like a person who's toxic. 50% of all the health benefits that accrue to someone when I'm counseling them comes from what they stop doing. Because I'm also saying now de-stress. So when a person is de-stressing, they feel great. They feel fabulous. Just to deep breathe and learning how to breathe diaphragmatically and taking their time. And I give them a simple little way of using kinesiology and acupressure points. You take 3 fingers and you take it right up on the eyebrow and you say to yourself, I no longer want these thoughts. And you just tap there for about 60 seconds. I no longer want these negative thoughts. I no longer want these negative thoughts.
Now, one procedure we can use is called the EFT, the Emotional Freedom Technique. And if I've had a bad past experience and I'd like to clear that out and not carry it with me, I could simply hold my fingers up here with a statement of intention to myself. I instruct my mind to go to that place where that information is encoded for the purpose of releasing it. It might even be back to something that I think probably happened when I was a baby, but I never remember it. But I can instruct my mind just like instructing my computer to go to the place that information is there. And then with the intention to release it, I can tap on my eyebrow with that intent. Might be thinking to myself, I'm releasing all the effects of that trauma. And on the side of my eye, I'm releasing all the effects of that trauma. Anything that disturbed me from the past, I'm letting that go. I'm erasing that program from that encoded information in my brain. I'm letting it all go because I want to return to happiness and just be in the present moment now. I don't want to be going to the past.
And lo and behold, look how many people no longer have those thoughts because they're changing the circuitry. Remember, everything you do has the capacity to change something that was there that you didn't want. And that's good. So getting rid of something is the first step of happiness. So let's get over this. We have to go someplace. Do something with someone in order to be happy. What did I do to create a reaction that causes problems? Because a lot of our happiness is blocked because of our words, our deeds, our actions, our attitude towards others or even towards ourselves. And it starts with something as simple as asking yourself, be honest. Remember, only with honesty can you grow. What I do, because sometimes we're not even conscious of what we do. It's hardwired. It's our ego defending the sensitivity, our own dark side. So we're refusing to acknowledge we are responsible for something. If you can't take responsibility for what you've done, then you're just going to repeat it.
Most people don't stop and ask, what did I do to create that reaction in somebody else? Most of us just get right into it, blaming, screaming, making out somebody wrong that made us wrong. And it takes what I would call an evolved human, a big human, somebody who's willing to say, is there something in myself that brought out that reaction? How could I have worded my request differently? How could I have delivered my communication in a more peaceful way? Now, of course, you have to be careful because some of us are blamers. We blame ourselves for everything, and you can't always make somebody treat you well, but you can feel good about your own level and style of communication. And every time we adjust, every time we grow, when we learn that, oh, I could have said, I'm sorry, or please forgive me, or excuse me, and that might have had somebody respond to me in a more loving way, then all of a sudden we see people around us start to alter.
I think it's very difficult for most of us to stop and reflect even for a moment before we just react. And if we're a jet pilot or in some other emergency situation, reaction time is very important. And we need to be trained to act like that in the moment with total precision and effectiveness. But for most of us, we could afford to be a little more mindful or attentive and reflective and think before we act. But most of us are not trained in this. We don't really have the inner discipline, the mental chops to be able to manage ourselves or manage our emotions that way. And I'm not saying be a control freak. We can still be spontaneous, but to be a little bit more in control of our unbridled emotions.
Now, I want to talk about something that's crucial to understanding happiness. Happiness has to be understood by measuring the strengths and weaknesses of our positive side and our negative side. There's an old Native American concept that within each and every one of us, there's two dynamic life forces. They call them the great wolves, the white wolf and the dark wolf. The dark wolf represents greed, insecurity, avarice, anger, rage, violence, connivingness, manipulation, all the qualities that we do not like. And then the white wolf, the dynamic wolf, is sensitivity, unconditional love, empathy, compassion, service, humility. Those two things every human being has. Here's part of the problem of a lot of people's lack of happiness. We'd like to think happiness is getting rid of all of our negatives and then only having positives. That's not possible. We will go through our entire life with our opposite always present. Remember, the best you can be is also the worst you can be. The idea is learn how not to engage the dark side of your nature. Let us let go of illusion. Happiness is reality. And it's because we choose to live in illusion that we deny ourselves happiness.
We often have an illusion of what makes us happy. And very often that illusion is not really what does make you happy. So you have to step back from that belief that having certain things in your life will make you happy, getting married will make you happy, and really sit down and think, what do I really want? Not what do others want for me, but what do I really want? And when you can learn to answer that, and that can be really hard, it can take a lot of time, but it's just trying one little thing, trying going out by yourself and learning how to enjoy your own company a little bit more and understand that you can be alone and feel good, because alone does not mean unhappy. It does not mean lonely. And when you get in touch with yourself and who you are and what makes you feel good, then you can let go of the illusions that certain things are going to make you happy, because usually they're illusions created by other people, not you.
I think for many of us, the illusion we imagine is going to be better than the truth. And it feels easier, it feels safer for us to live with the illusion and not face the reality, rather than really look at the truth, because we're afraid we'll be disappointed, we're afraid we'll be let down, we're afraid we'll be hurt. And unless you're really willing to take the risk involved in facing the truth and moving beyond the truth, dealing with the truth, then you're stuck in illusion, and then you're stuck in life. You're not able to get to the places emotionally or literally that you want to go.
The illusion of our world is what is really destroying us. We can't see the truth. When we pretend to be something, it's as if we're programmed, and there's no way to connect. How can one have relationship with oneself or anyone else if we are wearing this mask and we're not comfortable with who we are?
The illusion, if only. If only I didn't live here, if only I was younger, if only I was black, if only I was white, if only I was taller, if only I was richer. If only immediately closes the door, because it's saying, I must get through all these obstacles before I can find happiness. Not true. Happiness is a state of mind. It is a state of mind of being able to surrender everything that is an illusion so you can accept the moment you're in. If you're poor, you can be happy. If you're single, you can be happy. If you're a mother who is living in a ghetto with 4 kids and on welfare, you can still be happy.
We endlessly and ceaselessly look outside of ourselves for happiness, always blaming. We play the when-then game which says, when I achieve more, then I'll be happy. We play the if-then game. If so-and-so hadn't gotten in my way, or if I had a different parent, or if something had been different in my life, then I would be happy. We play the if-only game. If only I had more money. If only I had a different spouse. If only I had a better job. If only people would see me as worthwhile in who I am, then I would be happy. And until we address those, we will never, ever find a true sense of meaning and happiness.
Look at Gandhi. Look at people throughout history that have suffered, who've had none of the worldly possessions, none of the things we think we have to be happy, but they found happiness. You could go to some of the most impoverished areas of the world. You could go to the desert and the Bushmen of the Kalahari in Africa, and you can find happiness because they're not living with any illusion. And we do nothing but surround our lives with illusion, if only. So get rid of the illusion, and you are then present with happiness. But you have to be honest about what is illusion. And many of our expectations about others is illusion.
I try to step away from situations and find maybe the optimistic side of life.
Everything makes me happy. It's life. Why not being happy is the question, right? Life, sun, water, people, everything, or not?
Love follows gratitude. Therefore, every day when you awaken, look for things to feel grateful for.
The rising of the sun was an inspiration for me. The dew on the grass is an inspiration for me. The simplicity of life is what makes me literally soar up and become, in the moment, when it works, you become a completely different person. Not only are you happy, you're able to move forward.
Look at the little things, because life is merely an accumulation of small, almost imperceptible events that when we look at the aggregate total, we think, wow, isn't that good? And everything is cumulative, constructively and destructively cumulative. The bright side of our nature accumulates the positive and best we can be. The dark side of our nature accumulates mistrust, betrayal, anger, all the negatives. So if you spend your time thinking about things that make you jealous or envious, then you're accumulating day by day, thought by thought, just like the person that gradually, with no great big massive feast, but each day eats a little bit, they're going to gain weight at the end of the year and say, where did this weight come from? What was that extra 100 calories a day? 3,500 calories, and you gained a pound. So remember, positive little things. So gratitude about everything becomes a positive virtue every moment.
When you feel really grateful for your life and express it, write your blessings down, and just start to greatly appreciate what you have, it's so much easier to feel loving also. You get a warm feeling when you notice all of the wonderful things happening in your life, and you made them happen. And that's a really good reason to love yourself more.
Gratitude offers us a chance to come back to our deepest self and the core thanks that we feel fundamentally for being alive. It puts everything into a grander perspective, where we can look down on the larger scheme of our lives, look down on the entire scheme of life itself. And when we feel that, I think that it brings us into touch with the vibration of creation itself. And as a result, we feel honor, we feel gratitude, and that brings us into a natural state of happiness.
Everything you do, look for everything around you to be grateful for. All right? When I walk down Broadway at night sometimes, I think I'm very grateful to be in a city with such culture, such diversity, such intellect, such passion, such dynamic energies who are fearless in what they challenge. And it's gratitude to be here. But when I'm down on my farm and I'm looking up at the big sky at night, and there's just me and nature, And there's this timeless moment of acknowledging that I've been a part of this universe forever, because you feel that connection. You feel the connectedness to something that's eternal when you're alone, but it requires being alone. And you just, the vastness of the universe, and you suddenly feel that connection. The universe allows you to feel the vibration. And I'm grateful for that moment. I'm grateful for everything. I'm even grateful for the bad things that have happened in my life, because they've taught me lessons I can teach to other people. And the key is, in gratitude of negative things, be grateful for not having to repeat it. It's the repetition of our problems that accumulates. We're all going to make mistakes, and that's completely okay, as long as we understand them and we're grateful for them, and we become stronger for it.
In the United States, 50% of households have pets. Most people don't keep animals because they need to. In past centuries, people had to have dogs for guarding the house. They had cats to kill mice in the farmyard and so forth. Most people are not keeping animals because they need them anymore, at least for these utilitarian functions. They keep them because they need that bond with animals, something that reminds us of our own animal nature, and that are those instinctive animal properties that in the modern industrial world we may otherwise lose. And there are also studies that show that people who keep dogs and cats tend to live longer and have healthier lives. People who've had heart attacks tend to survive more if they keep a dog or a cat. And if it was just dogs, you might say, oh, well, they get more exercise because they take the dog out for a walk. But it works even with cats, and cats provide no exercise for most people. But it's that sense of warmth and bonding and just animal presence which can have a healing effect.
So I'm Tamara.
I'm Miranda.
And this is Elfie, who thinks she's a fierce beast. And what makes me happy actually is taking Elfie on a walk, because she's so cute, and every time we take her out, everybody makes a big fuss over her.
And she makes me happy when, I don't know, when she like licks me and stuff.
What about when you're having a bad day? What do you do?
I don't know.
You talk to Elfie?
Yeah. I tell her, and she's not a very good listener because she usually runs away.
When I'm with my dog, I really feel loved, and I want to become the man my dog thinks I am. Because I can see that the dog loves me so much, it makes me realize how lovable I am and can be, even through a dog's eyes.
Our pug?
First thing, our pug, our most adorable 14-year-old pug, gives us great happiness.
It's true. I mean, we love each other too, but
our pug,
you
he's so cute. I wish he was out here.
Yeah.
And we could have, you could have filmed him and he would have brought you happiness.
It's true.
The key to happiness is being able to say no to any energy that does not honor who you are. And when you intuitively see that an energy is not balanced, don't engage it. You have a right. You have an inalienable right not to engage. There's no law that says you must befriend this person and you must accept that person. There's no law. So have the courage and have the power to say no to any energy that would throw your own perfect harmony out of balance.
The hidden side of our psyche is so filled with shame and fear and guilt and doubt, and we have to constantly lift ourselves into the spiritual moment to understand that we are greater than all of these negative thoughts and feelings and body sensations, and remind ourselves constantly, I am more.
The hidden side of our psyche is where we produce, manifest, and project our toxic energy. And that toxic energy can only create one thing, self-sabotage. So only when you become aware that you're even processing this toxic energy can you then stop it. What you do is you're honest and ground yourself and say, okay, negative thought, I understand you, but I understand the consequence if I share it. So I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to act that out. Stay there, it's okay, but I'm going to project a positive thought. Now the world sees the positive energy you're sharing and not the negative.
Often we try to manipulate others to get what we want by using emotional blackmail or making them feel guilty. Sometimes we get something that we want initially, but in the long run, it really doesn't work. And it's an unhealthy thing to do. You should try to get what you need, what you want, by doing the right things, by earning it, and by asking nicely. And if it doesn't work, find other ways to satisfy what you need.
If you want to be happy, give yourself full attention and full energy to the positive side. Have the courage to make the changes. Make the changes, embrace the changes, learn the lessons from them, and then you're free of that. Then you're laying down a new hardwire in the brain of continuing to do the right thing consistently. Now, some people don't even get there. A lot of people are so apathetic, so depressed, so angry, they don't even try. Half of your energy is spent focused upon your ideals, your dreams, your ambitions, but half of it's based upon the fear of actualizing anything. So fear comes from the dark side. Optimism comes from the positive side. So we are now stuck in this kind of quandary of knowing we can do something more important with our lives and the fear of actualizing it. That's what happens when you give half your energy, your constructive energy, to what will empower you and half to what disempowers you. The only thing comes from that is dualism. And I mean major dualism. And hence we stay in a rut. We think higher thoughts, act on lower impulses. Be aware of your negative side. Understand it. Understand why you are the way you are, but don't feed it. And by backing off from arguing, backing off from demands, backing off from manipulation, backing off from lying, backing off from trying to control the outcome with other people, then you're not feeding it. And when you don't feed it, it no longer has the power to cause you to make irrational and irresponsible and inappropriate choices. Are you overcommitted or undercommitted to your own life? What do I mean by that? I mean that if we're overcommitted, then we do not live with balance. We have too much going on in our life, too many responsibilities, too many people, too many things to do, and there's no time for the essential self. Therefore, we live out of balance. And the only thing that can happen out of balance is we become emotionally hyper. And then when we're not finding fulfillment, we go down to depressed. Or we are undercommitted. We are so lacking in the sense of who we are, the meaning and purpose of our life, that we're just taking the meaning from our job. So we'll go to our job, or what we distract ourselves with, movies or television or radio.
When we're depressed, when we feel bad about our lives and are pessimistic and lethargic or agitated and have difficulty sleeping and eating, all those signs and symptoms of depression are letting us know that our lives are out of balance, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially.
Anyone who's depressed needs to be on a healthy diet, including supplements such as, for example, fish oils, omega-3 fish oils, which have proved very beneficial for a variety of psychological disorders, including particularly depression. The vast majority of people get significant benefits from taking up an exercise program. So that is a very important thing.
Just about anybody can take 5 or 10 minutes to go outside the house, to walk around their neighborhood, and that's a beginning. And the more movement that you can bring into your life, the more life you're bringing into your life.
Perhaps the most important overlooked way in which Americans can help themselves heal depression is by looking at sleep and dreams. In fact, losing sleep, insomnia, is the single strongest predictive factor we have for clinical depression. Depression and insomnia are so closely linked in our research findings that many of us today believe that they're inseparable processes.
I find happiness in this world because of my faith.
I love food. Like, food really makes me happy. Like, having a good meal, especially when you don't have to pay for it, is really good.
How many times have you tried to tell people, but I'm a good girl? This would be the same for the boy. And what that means is, I will never do anything or say anything that'll make you think ill of me, and I'm really going to subvert any natural impulse to be my authentic self. More often than not, the person that has to define themselves as being good really doesn't trust themselves, but they have mastered the art of their illusion. When you master the art of the illusion of your life, then you'll become what everyone expects you to be, and you'll maintain it with absolute perfection.
The good girl persona is one that many women get trapped in. They think to be loved, to belong, to be accepted, they have to be a good girl, they have to say yes when they mean no. And so, you know, most people are dying inside that persona. They want to be able to be free to say no, or that doesn't work for me, or to set a strong boundary. So I think if our goal is to be authentic, to be real, to know that yes, we're good, but sometimes maybe we're not so good, or sometimes a good dose of selfishness will allow us to speak our truth and stand up for ourselves or our children or our community, then when we can see that the real self actually comes bearing more gifts than the good girl self, then we allow ourselves to be our authentic expression.
When you learn the healthy part of nice, nice girl, not people pleaser, not doormat, but being nice to take care of yourself, that's when happiness can come. That's when you feel more empowered with yourself, because you're not worrying about pleasing everyone but yourself.
Most of the people who define themselves as the good girl, or most guys the good boy, they're good for what everyone expects of them. And they can go through their entire life doing exactly what was expected and never taking a detour. But that doesn't mean they've lived an authentic life. It is allowing the authentic self to come up and speak, the authentic self to feel. How many things would you have done? How many responsibilities you would have taken on? How many people would you have allowed in your life? How much abuse would you have accepted? How many conversations would you have had if the authentic self was the one that was actually engaged instead of the conditioned self?
So we, at a very early age, of course, learn to turn away from ourselves, from our own authentic nature, from our own heart. And we start looking outside of ourselves. If I please the person who's important to me, my mother, my father, then I'll get the love that I need, the acceptance that I need, and I'll feel loved and accepted, and I'll be happy. And we grow up never questioning that original erroneous premise. And so we spend our lives in the pursuit of something from outside. We're pursuing outside something that we can actually only give to ourselves. And it doesn't occur to us, of course, we have a lot of conditioning that says that it shouldn't occur to us to try to give that sort of thing to ourselves. But it's not even so much a giving it to ourselves as returning to the authenticity that we left in order to try to get what we want or need. And leaving that authenticity results in a feeling of emptiness. And so we try to fill that emptiness with getting all of these things, and because we're trying to get them, we never have them, and the emptiness persists.
We confuse pleasure with happiness. Pleasure is not happiness. Pleasure is a completely different energy. Pleasure is what gives you a sense of enthrallment in the moment you're in, a sense of joy, a sense of excitement, a sense of being able to take advantage of the moment we're in. Now, pleasure is fine, but pleasure is not something that can be sustained. Happiness is the sense of being that no matter what you're doing, no matter, you can do nothing and be happy. Pleasure, you got to be doing something in order to find pleasure in it. Now, but we confuse that all the time. So remember, pleasure is not happiness.
Happiness is not a constant need for pleasure and fulfillment. There is a big difference between pleasure and happiness. You get pleasure from buying a new toy, from getting a new car, from going shopping and buying new clothes, but that doesn't really make you happy in the long run. It's just that moment of pleasure, or it might be a day or a week of pleasure. But real happiness is something that's consistently puts you into a feeling of contentment, that overall contentment with your life. Things may go wrong, but you can accept that it's momentary. You can find solutions instead of wallowing in it. You can know that things happen for a reason, whatever's meant to be will be, and move on with it. I think that spirituality, a really strong sense of faith, helps to nurture true happiness as opposed to feeling very discontented, and then you look to outside things like things you can buy or having someone in your life to give you a life because you don't have a happy life on your own.
Pleasure fulfillment in the absence of happiness just feeds the narcissistic part of ourselves. It, like in a relationship, if somebody is just feeding their ego and the pleasure through sexuality, because maybe a man is with a beautiful woman, and so they're just feeding their ego, will never fulfill one in life. They'll go to the next pleasure fulfillment, the next and the next. It doesn't create happiness.
Pleasure is good, but happiness, which means the core of my being, needs nothing from anyone in order to find my happiness. I am happy because I've come to grips with who I am, what my meaning and purpose is, and I can be happy. So if you took away everything I have, you will not diminish my happiness. I will be able to sustain it, no matter what the ups and downs are.
And so we have been really programmed with a belief that our happiness is connected to the physical character of the universe, and that happiness in this case is measured by how much physical character of the universe you own. And so basically, we have been programmed that if we are going to be successful, we will measure our success with our physical possessions. And so we have been programmed to look for the wrong thing. And why that's relevant is you can really ask most of the people that own most of those possessions. In the end, once they had the possession, did it really provide the harmony and energy of the field? And the answer is not really. And so basically, you can go down and find that some of the poorest people on this planet have actually found the answer. And it wasn't in the matter, it was in the nature of community, love, and harmony.
I have 3 healthy children, 3 healthy children-in-law, 4 healthy grandchildren, one of whom is married to a very nice young lady. And I think that's the most important thing. Everybody in the family is healthy, and they're all more or less doing what they want to be doing.
I guess friends make me happy.
Yeah, definitely. Just having like ridiculously good times.
Yeah.
Just being ridiculous.
Pretty much.
And then reminiscing about your ridiculousness is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we were just doing.
Be aware of the predator that hides behind the facade that yells, "Help me, rescue me." And you go to help and you realize, whoa, wrong person to help. Almost always the person that never ceases demanding your attention is the last person you should give that attention to. The person who truly needs your help and would benefit from it is a person that will not demand it, but you should be intuitive enough and spiritual enough to see that you have a responsibility to help those people. The other type, they're just using you and your need to rescue them. And think of all the people who've wasted part of their life in the rescue syndrome.
I think it's important that we all examine our nature. And as in the animal kingdom, some of us humans are prey and some of us are predators. One of the things that I have found absolutely fascinating is how many predators disguise themselves as prey. They disguise themselves as being a victim so that people will feel sorry for them. Prey usually are the ones where people are less defended when they're around them. So it's imperative that we understand our nature and other people's nature so that we can protect ourselves. Because of course, if we are a predator, we wouldn't want to go out and just say, oh, I'm a predator, look at me. We're going to put on a mask and try to convince you that we are something other than who we are. And then that's when we get trapped in other people's hurt.
Present satisfaction, delayed dissatisfaction. Don't look at what you're going to achieve in this moment. Look at what you achieve in this moment will be down the road. Is it sustainable? Is it healthy? Is it balancing? Is it nurturing? Is it honest? Then if it is, fine. If it's not, pass on it. All the time, I believe it's more important to pass on something that you could have in the moment, if in that moment it's going to make you less of a person.
There's a lot to be learned if we can tolerate a little bit more the mystery, not just try to hold on to a few quick certainties, but to really tolerate the mystery of life and go deeper, and we will become deeper through that, through facing the dark side of our psyche, for example, and not being so afraid of our own fears. Facing our anger and hatred and greed, and not trying to deny it or pretend it's not there or get rid of it prematurely, but integrate it and process it so we can feel angry and process it through awareness, present awareness, nowness awareness, process the anger, and then choose how and if to express it, not just have a blind knee-jerk reaction when we feel angry.
Continued indulgence becomes an obsession. So anytime people are obsessive about anything, more often than not, it's because they're indulging their negative side. And all you have to do is just look and you'll see it. It's a pattern. So look for the pattern where the person, no matter what it is you say, no matter what it is anyone says, they continue to indulge that obsession. The obsession to be healthy is just as bad as the obsession to be sick. The person that doesn't care about themselves and overindulges will have the same probable outcome as a person that absolutely has a fetish about health. When people ask me, what do I do to be healthy? I just make relaxed choices each day. It's not an obsession. I don't think about health. I don't think about health or happiness or joy or giving or caring or nurturing. I don't think about any of that. I just do it. It's a natural part. It's a natural response of a balanced life. When you master life, it is effortless, the energy that you control, because you're not afraid of it. You're not coming from the wrong place. You're not trying to force an outcome. Happiness is not a constant need for fulfillment and pleasure. So don't equate fulfillment with happiness. You can find something that's fulfilling and doesn't mean that you're going to be happy, and the constant need for it means that you're not going to achieve it. So separate out your need for these things versus the reality of becoming that thing. So we are happy, we just don't allow ourselves to express it based upon our condition and the different ways that we have manipulated this unhappiness in our lives to survive. You get rid of all that, you wipe all that out, and what you have is happiness. Without purpose, we resign ourselves to apathy. So a part of happiness is having purpose, a constructive, positive purpose in our lives. Think of all the things that your life could mean to yourself and others if you simply kept focused on a meaningful, positive purpose. It's not about money or education. It's not about social standing. It's not about even special gifts or talents, but it's about meaningfulness of purpose. So if I know that I'm a good person, and if I know that I'm a happy person, then just being happy and a good person and being able to live my life in balance means I'm not going to imbalance anyone else. I'm not going to do anything else that's going to adversely affect another human being. That's meaningful.
How do you have a good life? And how do you make a difference? And you know, there's so many ways to look at that. And one of the most important is to ask yourself, what's your purpose for being here? And is your purpose to be part of a whole and try to make that whole better? Or is your purpose just to grab as much as you can for yourself? And there is some research that shows that people who see themselves as part of a whole, where they try to improve that whole, end up being happier than people who just try to accumulate for themselves. And when I look at what makes a significant or good life, the question is almost always like a retrospective one. Like, did you make a difference somewhere? Did what you do help people? Were you able to love? Did, in some way, is the world better for your having been here?
Think if everyone did something consciously. So if I don't need something, I'm not going to buy it. Therefore, I'm not polluting in an excess way. That's being conscious. That's being mindful. So when you're mindful and you're conscious of every choice you make, the world is a better place.
curious thing about life and our existence is that if we really are honest in our heart of hearts, we look around and we see that in our culture, despite the affluence, despite how advanced we've become technologically, there's still a pervasive and underlying unhappiness. That many people wake up in the morning and go about their achievement-oriented lifestyle. They may even be extremely successful in the world's eyes, but in their heart of hearts, they lack purpose. They lack meaning in their life, and fundamentally, they lack happiness. They go home at night and their families are unhappy. Our divorce rates are outrageous. We seem to be very good at inventing things and achieving things and accomplishing things in our culture, but unfortunately, we don't have the happiness factor that goes along with it.
You can be humble, austere, subtle, and have a major impact based upon the joy that you bring to others. Joyful people touch us lightly, and we look for that. Angry people don't, negative people don't, demanding people don't, pushy people don't. When you want someone in your life, you want them in because of how they touch you. We stay stuck when we refuse to evolve. And then we develop superficial comforts around our stuck. We don't want to have anything happen that's going to make us feel uncomfortable, even if it's for our betterment.
To reach out, to make new family, to make new friends, to stay active physically and emotionally and spiritually, in my mind, are absolutely essential if we want to live longer, healthier lives. And I don't believe that can be separated.
And when we cease evolving, then everything becomes boring. We become boring. And then we start looking as voyeurs out to the world. Entertain me, feed me, I'm insatiable, I need entertained, I need distracted. Distracted from what? From an authentic life. Because an authentic life is constantly changing, constant. It never stops changing. And a stuck life doesn't change. And it gets angry with itself and depressed, and it acts out. And how an angry life that is stuck and not evolving acts out depends upon each person and their conditioning and circumstances and who they are. Finally, how do I measure my inner value of self? How do I know what my value as a human being is? By how you touch other people, what you're willing to share, the degree of your compassion, the degree of your service towards others.
Love, which is probably the most important of all. Allowing ourselves to be with other people in a way that is open and respectful, that honors who they are. And allowing ourselves also to love ourselves, and practicing seeing that as our the light of our life, and following that light wherever we can, and wherever we have the opportunity, moving in the direction of love rather than resentment or rather than fear, but making those conscious choices where we're able to.
We live in a time when millions of people in our own country need help. We have 5 million homeless people. We have 35 million people who are going to bed hungry each day. They just don't have enough food to eat. We have 100 million people who are one paycheck away from being poor. And yet, right now, we don't even think of these people. When we think of people poor off, we think of Darfur and the Sudan. We think of other places and other people. We don't even see our neighbors in need. We have probably half the senior citizen population in the United States is depressed because they're alone. They no longer have the value to society. They no longer are considered essential and important. And so we more or less abandon them. Do you know what it would mean to be able to give some friendship and comfort to these people? So when you look at all the children who are abused, all the people who have been neglected, all the deficiencies we have, then you have to say, is not part of my value, my internal value, and seeing if I cannot find those who are worthy and share the best of my nature with them? Being a big brother or a big sister? being able to spend some time helping seniors, shop for them, sit and talk with them, to go out and have conversation with homeless people. Think what it would mean just to spend time each day, an hour each day, helping other people who are less off than yourself.
I like people. People are happiness. I like helping blind people cross the street. That makes me happy. Like, if you see them on a corner, you can go and help them.
For years, I worked with the children at the Washington Square Preschool as a storyteller, volunteer. And that was one of the happiest times of my life.
Relationships are crucial. In fact, the richer a person's social network, the more likely they are, in the first place, not to get depressed, and then if they do become depressed, to be able to receive the support they need to heal.
There is enough research now showing that the single greatest risk factor for death and disease is not smoking, not failing to exercise. It's lack of having a supportive network, a support system, people that we can count on.
In Cherokee tradition, I was told that in addition to the idea of the body, mind, and spirit, which is usually shown as three interlocking circles, body, mind, and spirit, I was shown there's another circle around those three, and that circle is called family. And then there's another circle around those, and that is called community. And then finally, there's a third circle around those, one that's never drawn, and that is the Creator. And so to have that connection, we know that people who are happily married live longer. We know that people who have strong connections to a community and have lots of friends and that interconnectedness to other people live longer and live healthier lives.
Yes, every one of us is here to have an enjoyable experience on this planet, and in so doing we will support those experiences for others as well. And it's simply the old golden rule coming back as the primary guidance for our planet. And if we live by that one rule, and perhaps instead of the 10 Commandments, it's simpler, just one rule is to learn to live in harmony with others and in this process create the community of life. And that is survival, and that is happiness.
You are a happy person because it's really only a happy person who's so happy with their life, so joyful with who they are, so much aware of the blessings of this day and grateful for it that they can share the gratitude of themselves with other individuals and do so with unconditional love. I believe that that is merely a step away. And that step is easy to take as long as you stop taking the step through the conditioned self, the conditioned mind, and the conditioned reactions. Surrender the ego, surrender what you are not, and fully and in an uncompromising way embrace who you really are. And that may mean a shock to many people. They may not recognize your attitude, your actions, your deeds when you're willing to say no or yes based upon what the real self is wanting to align with.
I think that the real thing that keeps us from being able to really achieve what we want in life, which is happiness, is not so much simply by adopting positive thinking, but truly by going through a letting go process of all of our false ideas about ourselves. Our egos are not big on the idea of letting go. Our sense of identity is oftentimes who we believe that we are, and we are afraid to let it go.
And at the end of the day, that is that wonderful universal synchronicity of alignment and harmonizing with the right energy so that even though your duality, the negative self, is behind you, it is so far behind you that you're not going to empower it. It may watch the positive self, but it will no longer dictate the words, the actions that self-sabotage. And then one day you wake up and you think, whoa, I feel good today. I'm happy. I don't need anyone, I don't need anything in order to justify my happiness. Just being in this moment, I'm happy. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you for watching.
And remember, every day at noon Eastern Standard Time, you can hear my radio program, The Gary Null Show, on PRN.Live. That's PRN.Live. And also, you can go to Rumble, you can go to Odysee, and you can go to Gary Null YouTube and look at all the thousands of films and lectures and broadcasts in case you want to catch up on anything. Have a nice day.
Are you tired of closed-minded programming? Well, look no further than PRN.Live, the home for progressive voices.